While flying a transport from Keflavik, Iceland to Argentia, Newfoundland, at about 10,000 feet, this was at night, I happened to observe a little bit off of the bow, about 10 or 15 degrees on the water below the horizon, a yellow glow that appeared as though we were approaching a city at night. Since we were over 300 miles from Argentia, I knew that it couldn't be a city, that maybe possibly it were some ships lighted up, and that there were ships in the area that we didn't know about. I asked the navigator, and he said no, there were no ship plots, and that we were not close to land. So I observed it for a while, called it to the attention of Lieutenant Kingdon, who was sitting in the co-pilot's seat. He observed it for a while. As we got close, within about 30 or 35 miles, the lights seemed to have a pattern. They were elongated, but it was not a circular type pattern, possibly the length of a couple of ships or 2 aircraft carriers, and the width of 2 aircraft carriers. After observing this for a while, we got within a range of, say, 30 miles, the lights went out, and all we saw in the water was a small halo. This small halo started its approach towards us, turned to an orange, to a fiery red, to almost a purplish red, and at about 400 or 500 feet below us, it stopped its movement. I had already disengaged the autopilot in order to try to go under this craft, because it looked like we were on collision course. And at that time, I noticed that it was not sitting level. The craft was sitting at an angle, about 45 degrees off the bow, and it was staying with us. So it continued to move with us for a few seconds. And of course, behind me, the additional crew was standing, and they scattered all over the cockpit. A couple were injured. Then it started its movement away from us, and at that time I could tell it was an intelligent craft of some kind, guided. It came up to take a look at us, and then it started its movement away from us. At that time, some other crew members came up, and it looked at what we were observing. I put the autopilot back on, set my course, and walked back aft, and Dr. Mosier was sitting back there, and he was a commander in the Navy at the time. And I asked him, I said, "Doc, did you see what we saw?" He says, "Yes." He says it was a flying saucer. I didn't look at it because I don't believe in such things. So at that time, I rushed back to the cockpit, and I told Lieutenant Jones, who had taken my seat, I says, "Al," I says, "whatever you do, don't tell anybody that we saw a flying saucer, because they will probably lock us up when we land." So he said, well, it's too late, that I had called Gander Control to see if they had anything on the radar. So at that time, we knew that they knew that we had sighted something.
Like that, 15 miles in a fraction of a second. I disengaged the autopilot to push the nose over because we were at a collision course. And when I did, I just saw it head on. It's 300 feet in diameter. We knew that. We had a knowing, like somebody was telling us, 300 feet in diameter. So at that time, I heard a hell of a noise. And I said to Fred, "What the hell was that?" He said, "Well, the navigator and the radio man ducking fell, hit their head, one hit their head, hurt their arm, they were scrambling on the deck." So I thought it hit us underneath. So I said, "Well, where in the hell did it go?" And Fred said, "It's right over to the right. I can see it." I couldn't see it. So it drifted forward about 5 miles from it. It never got to the altitude that we were at, a few hundred feet below. I began to watch it. Well, we knew then it was a friendly encounter. It just wanted us to see him. So then I went to engage the autopilot again. The magnetic compass was doing like this. And the bird dogs, which is direction finder, the 2 bird dogs, they were pointing right at this thing, just vibrating like this. And there were a lot of electrical things in the airplane that went haywire. So I told Fred, "Did you see that coming?" He says, "It was close. It was doing this." And so I went back to the vacuum operator. That's the old airplane, the vacuum operator, hydraulic operator control. So I go back to that and said. So then we sat there and watched it for a while because it just paced us, stayed with us. And so the other crew wanted to land at large engines, so I had sent back. They came forward. Al Jones, which was the original plane commander, took my seat and was still there. He was watching it. And as I was walking back aft, he decided he was going to chase it. And so he disengaged. When I get back aft, I wanted to see how the passengers were doing. They're all on the right-hand side. They could see it underneath the wing. And then, I recognized the doctor back. He was a psychiatrist out of Bethesda Naval Hospital, plus a lot of other things. So I said, I better talk to him first. So Cornell said, did you see what we saw, Doc? He grinned at me and looked me straight down. Yeah, and he says, yeah, that was a flying saucer. I didn't look at it. I don't believe in such things.